Well, hello and happy Monday to you, and welcome once again to Modern Mom Monday. I'm executive producer and host of Modern Mom Live here every single Monday. I've been thinking financial way too much. Coming to you every single Monday on topics that relate most importantly to you and your family. Obviously, a lot of things happening these days. Many of us are at home juggling not only work and home, but now adding that extra layer of distance learning. And now we're serving as, dual purpose. Some of us are even PE coaches. Some of us are tutors. Some of us are even tech support. But, I just feel like nowadays, it seems like we can handle a little of everything. And if you're not in that category, well, welcome to the club, because I think many of us are feeling slightly overwhelmed. And that's why we've called in the forces. We've called in two powerhouse leaders from across the globe to help us really stretch our schedule, think creatively, and find ways where we can manage just a little bit more in our day. I want to introduce two very wonderful friends here. We've got the one and only Suzanne Brown, who is CEO of Mompowerment, joining us. It's so great to have you. Suzanne, how are you?
I'm great. How's it going, Winnie? It's always a good day when I get to chat with you.
And that's how I feel when I see you, especially today. Today's a very special day. I know you're joining us from the beautiful state of Texas. And so how are you feeling?
School started last week, so a few days to kind of get back into that groove, and today was good. Last week was great, actually. So I feel very positive about how things are going, because we are starting off the school year with remote learning. Like you said, tech support. I can be a teacher. What else would you like to throw in there? Bring it on.
I feel like, you do so much for your kids, but we also have this sort of commonality and that you and I, we both have littles and we both love to travel, and life is certainly very different. But somehow we're managing. And I mean, if you were to tell me that we would literally be working from home, I mean, for you, working from home probably isn't that out of realm right now, but also juggling our kids and their tech needs. Actually, Suzanne, you're going to love this. This is so funny. Like right before we started the show right now, my husband sent me a text saying that one of the kids in their third grade Zoom class was changing their clothes on the Zoom. I know, right?
Whoops. Okay. That's a different way to start off the school year.
Yeah. I don't even know. I'm hoping Suzanne, it was a little boy. That's all I'm going to say. But that's a whole nother discussion. And those of you who are joining us, thank you so much for joining us. We are streaming live today on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on YouTube, as well as Twitter. So wherever you're joining from, we would love to see you. We are monitoring live comments today. Don't be shy. Join us. And Suzanne, we know, is joining from Texas. I'm here in Southern California. Share and let us know where you're joining us from, because we would love to include you in this conversation. With Suzanne, we're going to get back. We'll come back to you in just a moment, because there's so much that we need to talk about. Okay, Kate Christie. Let's welcome Kate Christie to the show. Kate Christie is founder and CEO of TimeStylers. And Kate, you're not joining us from the States. Where are you joining us from today?
I'm dialing in from Melbourne, Australia, Winnie. So lovely to be with you and Suzanne.
It is so wonderful to have you with us, Kate, joining us from Australia. I got to tell you selfishly, I don't know about you, Suzanne. I feel like I wish I was in Australia right now.
Yeah.
No, you don't. It's winter here. It's cold. Yeah. It's rainy. It's dreary. And we're in lockdown in Melbourne. So, stay where you are, guys. Stay where you are.
Stay where you are. I don't think they want Americans coming over right now.
I don't think you'd be able to get in. All the borders are closed.
All the borders are closed. It's a very challenging time. So you're in lockdown. I think here in the States, we're sort of in lockdown. It's sort of I think it depends on the person you talk to, whether or not we're in lockdown.
It's a mindset thing.
Yeah, I think it's sort of played by ear. And those of you who are joining us, maybe some of you are joining us from Australia. We love to hear from you as well. So this is the deal, my friends. We're talking about juggling it all. Like many of us, I know have had this dream we see on television, like the picture perfect executive, right? That's dressed to the T, and by the way, in 5-inch heels, and like obviously perfect children. The children are dressed like to the T as well, and of course they're like ahead by 2 or 3 grades. But let's talk about reality, Suzanne. Give it to me. Talk about your experience, what you're going through. Mompowerment sounds like you really got a lot going on.
I think it really comes down to you've got to be able to define what your all is. So you're talking about this perfect mom, perfect executive, perfect in every way, like probably makes like 5-course gourmet meals and it's like perfect size when it comes to her weight. But I mean, that's impossible, right? Like you can't do all of those things by yourself. And so you have to just figure out like, what is your all? And so I am more hands-on with my kids when it comes to school time, right? But that means that I have to wake up a little bit earlier. So do I sit here and say like, you got to wake up earlier, you got to wake up earlier? No, because you got to figure out what's most important to you and how you're going to make it all work. But you don't have to have all of those things. You get to define what the all is, especially right now.
I love that.
I think that's the part that people are missing when everyone says, oh, you can't have it all. You absolutely can, but you get to define the circle, right? You get to define the all.
Yes. You can define all. I love that we can all define all. And the most important thing is to remember that we also own our own rulers. So we don't have to use other people's rulers to define our level of success. So talk to me about sort of your strategies. One of my girlfriends that I spoke to, big executive, big player on social media as well. I was talking to her a couple of weeks ago, and literally we were doing a live stream together. And like one of her kids like jumped on her lap and like, wanted to talk about Frozen. And it was so much fun, but I can see in her face she's just like Winnie. And then so I changed the screen over, because I could tell she was just like help me at that moment. Do you have any tips, Suzanne, for working parents, working moms and dads right now? Because I think a lot of us maybe went through the first couple of days of school and thought, okay, this is okay, but now that it's becoming like more than 2 days, I think there's been a lot of anxiety and stress.
So I think there's 2 things that you can do to help. One, you can actually talk to your team and have it be okay to turn off the video, right? Like releasing that pressure of you've always got to be on the screen. Like it's okay to be able to turn off the screen, especially if you know that kids are going to come in and out. If you don't want them to be on screen, just have all of you need to just come to that agreement. So that's one side. And then on the other side, I have what I call the 4 Bs, which I have done with my boys for several years at this point. So they are not supposed to come in and interrupt me unless they are bleeding, barfing, something is broken, or something is burning. And so they know, don't come into the room unless it's one of those things, because your argument over Legos, not my problem during work hours. Like that you all can go deal with that. Like that's okay for you all to deal with.
Mom, it's big.
Yeah, but
you know what? They broke my Lego building.
It's okay. It's okay. You can come back from this, buddy. You can come back. But I think it also helps them understand like when do you really need a grown-up's help? How can you be more independent? When you've got more than one, they need to figure out how to get along at some point. So you don't need to be refereeing for whatever it is that they're playing with. And so having that really helped because I defined the rule. It's not that you figure it out, I don't care what's going on. It was very much in an emergency, you come to me and I'm telling you what an emergency looks like. But I think between those 2 things, you kind of relieve the pressure of, are they going to just run in here? And then what am I going to do if that happens? Right? Like, it's like, no, you have a plan.
Agree. I think that's a great idea. And actually, let's bring in Kate, because Kate, I think we should definitely talk about this a little bit. I know, just like Suzanne had mentioned, one of the things that I really loved about sort of the sheltering in place and being more aware than ever of what my kids were busy with is that these sort of teaching opportunities that like you can do this, right? And I want you to do this. And like, how cool is it for you to do this? And one thing that you've mentioned, Kate, is what Suzanne mentioned lightly too was about the team, right? Can you talk to us, Kate, about your sort of team methodology as it pertains to the family? What does your team look like?
Yeah, so look, from my perspective, my big mantra is family is a team sport and everybody has to contribute. You know, we're not living, this isn't a hotel, I'm not the maid. Everyone has to contribute. And my kids are a little bit older. So I've got a 16-year-old, an 18-year-old, and a 20-year-old. And so I've been doing this with them for years, like right since, you know, basically once your kids can walk, there's stuff they can do. And if, you know, they're capable of, you know, walking around and putting away their little toys and their clothes when they're tiny, and you just add to that and build to that. So I call it insourcing. You know, we're all familiar with outsourcing. Outsourcing is where you identify everything that you do around the house that you're prepared to pay someone else, an expert, to do. Insourcing is the exact opposite. That's where you identify everything you currently do for the people that you live with, that they can do for themselves, and you don't have to pay them. So clean up your wardrobe, hang up your towels, put away your clothes, put away your toys and your laptops, your school books. And so it's all about making everyone in the family aware that, you know, we're a unit, guys. We are all in this together. And it's also about creating really independent, resilient young adults. You know, my sons are going to go up and want to marry your daughters. So let's make sure that they are all capable of helping run a house.
Absolutely. Great point. Great point. Suzanne, I think we have certainly talked about this quite a bit of sort of empowering our kids, right? And I think one of the things that you and I connected with, like, I think years ago was that one of the things that we're big believers on is traveling with our children. I think you learn a lot by that experience, right? Can you talk a little bit about that? I mean, I know we've talked about it on social, but what are the things what are some goals that you have for your kids this year?
You know, I'm hoping we get to travel, like fingers crossed that actually happens. I think more than anything, we want our boys love school. So we want our boys this year to really feel that continued enthusiasm for school. So that is our number one goal, hands down. Nothing else will come before that. Now, that said, if we continue to do remote learning, because supposedly we're doing it for the first 8 weeks of school, but we'll see how long that lasts, we might be taking a little adventure elsewhere. So I'm going to do fingers crossed that actually happens if we are working from home, because my husband will be working from home for the rest of the year, and I always work from home. So there is a benefit to being an entrepreneur and being able to work from anywhere.
Absolutely. And Suzanne, so then talk to me about this. How do you manage your time? I mean, there's a lot of parents that are watching and like, I don't know how you guys do it. That's great. Suzanne usually works from home and her husband's there. I mean, I'm fortunate in that my husband is a network engineer, so he's able to juggle, you know, technology and whatnot. But there's a lot of people watching and thinking like, this is not the reality. We can't handle. In fact, I talked to a mom who says, you know, we have no choice but to create a pod with fellow parents to hire a tutor to watch over my kids doing distance learning, but because I can't do this. Do you have any guidance? I'll start with Suzanne. I definitely want to go to Kate on this too. Do you have any any secret sauce that you can share with us on how to make this work?
So the thing that has helped me hands down the most in general, so even pre-pandemic, is to plan my week on Sunday and then to plan each night for the next day. Okay, that is hands down. That's how I put together the Tetris of my time, right? Now, what I changed when the pandemic hit was I compare my calendar to my husband's on Sunday. And then each night we just do a check-in of, is everything still okay for tomorrow? Are there any things that we need to change? Because things come up, right? There are opportunities that come up. There are deadlines that get moved up. you never know what can change. Or it could be something related to your kids. They just need a lot more help with something that you weren't expecting. So it just allows you to kind of reset and adjust so you can prioritize and reprioritize. Now, the third step of that is I also compare this and I plan for my kids. So I look at their assignments, we go over their tasks in the morning, and we write them out, even though they have the same access that I do. They can log in and they can see exactly what their assignments are. But we go over their tasks in the morning, and that way they know exactly what they're working on. We write them in a place so that they are actually visible to everybody. And I mean, I'm not going to lie, I love being able to go and cross stuff off on my list, right? Like, I don't know if you're the same way, Winnie, but I definitely love that. And my boys have huge satisfaction in being able to do that too. And so not only do they feel like they have accomplished something by crossing off on that to-do list, I can look at a glance and I can see, oh, we still have a math assignment, and what is this thing that you have to do for art, right? So I can easily see that instead of having to log in, see what they've submitted to the teacher, and then see what I have to work on next. Like, it's very simple. It's just all right there. And I will tell you, I have seen a huge difference in the spring, especially. It's a huge difference between the days that I actually help the boys with their time management and the days when I was just super busy starting in the morning and I didn't help at all. Like, things just crumbled on those days. So it's just part of how we do it now.
Yeah, I can see that. Well, I think, Suzanne, said kind of meaningful for all of us. I mean, I know I personally plan my own, day before. I look at my own schedule. What I did in our house anyway, but I got all my kids watches. Like really simple watches, nothing fancy, but I wanted them to be aware. So we told them, okay, school, for example, starts at 8:30. And so you got to keep track of like when you're going to be in front of your computer. And so even like my 6-year-old, I feel like, he knows as soon as he wakes up, he's got to put his watch on, right? I think we're sort of training them to be more and more accountable. And like Kate was saying, like, letting them do more. And of course, we're going to be there now because we're around to sort of catch them just in case of an emergency. But overall, I kind of want them to like start to build out their own schedule. Kate, what's your thinking on this?
Yeah, look, I've got a couple of points on this. The first one is that very similar to Suzanne, it's not planning, but what I recommend with my clients is sit down with your kids each morning and share your schedule. So identify your 2 most important things you have to get done today. Kids identify just the two most important things or school pieces they have to do. And if you've got a partner, they do it as well. Then you can line your schedules up and you can say, okay, we're going to work in, say, 30 bursts or classroom timed bursts. So if they're dialing into a lesson for, say, 30, 45 minutes, then you want to match your work period to that work period so that you're all kind of in flow at exactly the same time. And the second thing I then do with that is set a timer. So the best timer you can possibly use in your house for this sort of stuff is the oven timer. Okay, don't go to your computer or your phone because that's drawing everyone back into the technology. The oven timer is perfect. It's usually centrally located in the house. It's really annoying when you get your kids to set it. When it goes off, they turn it off, and everyone then knows that that's like your 15-minute break, and you come back as a family and regroup.
Yes.
How do we go? What did we do? Where are we at? And then you then go into your next 30 to 45-minute batch.
Right. Great tip.
The third thing I'd say is, depending on the age of your kids, if they're really little, if you've got the 5, 6, 7-year-olds doing homeschooling, then set them up in their own little space next to where you're working. So you're kind of co-working. You keep everyone to that timer, but you're working on your piece of work, they're working on their work next to you, and everyone's kind of in you so they're okay.
Yeah, so Kate, I'm going to actually stop you just right there because I think that's a great point. And I know, Suzanne, you've done this too. I mean, I completely agree. What we've done also at our house is set up little workstations. Everyone has their little Costco folding table, right, next to like a parent. And I agree with you. I don't know if you've seen this, but I love this, is that we actually, one of my other actually my son's best friend's parent told me about this. Amazon has this clock, and it's an Alexa clock. Have you seen this, Suzanne?
I haven't. I'm going to look this up.
Yeah, the one that we have has a Mickey Mouse on it. It's about $30. We're not talking like, I got it on sale. It was reasonable, but what you can do is actually you just say like, Alexa, set timer for like 10 minutes, or Alexa, set reminder, after their little break for 20 minutes and then back. And then you can set it for different names. So it could be like child 1 timer, blah, child 2. And then it just does its thing, but I'm trying to wean them from that. I really want them to be aware of time. I know it's a pipe dream, but I feel like now they're sort of embracing a little bit. They're checking out their watches a little bit. Suzanne, what do you do?
We just set reminders on everyone's calendar, so it's on.
Queen? I feel like you're a Post-it queen.
I might like my Post-its.
You might.
I
have these ones you sent me too. I got to show you. So these Suzanne sent me. Okay. So tell me. So I'm guessing clocks and Post-its.
Yes. So we absolutely use the timer. We use the timer not on a consistent basis, but for things that are kind of more out of the ordinary, or when I'm using the Pomodoro technique, so that the boys know when they can come in, essentially.
Wait, tell me about this technique. We need to hear about this.
So Pomodoro technique is where you work in 25-minute increments, and then you have a 5-minute, what we'll call break. So, and that break can be anything. It can be the time that you have with your kids. It can be that you focus on social media if you don't have kids, and so that you don't go down the black hole of social media and all of a sudden you've been on Facebook for 45 minutes, right? So, but the thing that's incredibly important is that, at least in the way that I suggest using Pomodoro, is that you actually plan the 25 minutes and you plan the 5 minutes. So you're working in both with equal intention. So I definitely switch to this when I know my day is going to be super choppy, because it's really hard. So many times as entrepreneurs, we hear people say you should batch, where you basically do like things together, right? You do all of your email together, you do all of your PowerPoint, your research, like all of those things, you batch that because you can get into a groove. And so that can be incredibly hard to do when you know that you're going to be at home with your kids and with your significant other. And so if you switch to the Pomodoro technique, it might help you with that choppiness, so that your kids know when they can come in, so that they know, okay, so if I listen for the timer, that's when I can go in and talk to mom. And my husband kind of has more like free flow. So he some days he's got to be super on in that he's like on the phone, he's doing presentations, all those things. Other days he'll come out and he'll like play a board game for 20 minutes with my kids. So it all, for him, he's like, whatever, I don't need to do this stuff. So he's
married to you, so he doesn't have to worry about it.
Yeah, I don't have to worry about that side. Thank goodness.
Well, let's talk about this, Kate. One of the big things we've been hearing a lot about, and maybe not even hearing, but I think many of us can relate to this, is the theory of mom guilt. I know, like, when I was traveling a lot, I felt guilty because I was missing some of the events for my kids. And now that I'm home all the time, sometimes I'm like, I'm working so much, I kind of want to hang out and see what they're doing in class. Kate, how do you cope with mom guilt? And Suzanne, I definitely know you got a recipe for this too. So let's start with Kate on this.
Yeah, look, mum guilt is debilitating. We all experience it. It doesn't matter how confident you are as a woman or as a mum. It's really, really debilitating. So one of the key things, I would just give you one little message on this one. Just take one thing away. No one is going to give you a gold star for feeling guilty. Okay? No one is going to praise you or make you say, no one's going to validate your guilt. So we've got to move away from this. Tell yourself, I am a great mum. I am present. I'm available. I love my kids. They're clothed. They're fed. They're safe. I am a great mum. And we've got to reject mum guilt, because it is a massive, massive waste of our time.
Yes, I agree. Okay. Well, Suzanne, tell me what about you? What's your formula with dealing with mom guilt?
So I'm kind of similar to Kate in that I feel that that mom guilt in general doesn't serve you. So, like Kate said, you're not going to get a gold star for feeling guilty. And so, one, I always try to focus on the positive. So, what are the things that I can do to give my kids a little more attention in a specific moment? But for me, I think that especially when I look at work-life balance, I think about the long-term approach to it. So it's not, have I hit this 50-50 of this much time and this much time, half with my kids, half with my family. Okay, I've done it. All right, so I'm good. Like that doesn't work. I mean, it is almost impossible. And I feel like the days when you do that, it's because of a fluke. So if you take the pressure off and maybe you think about your week, maybe you think about a week of your time or a month or a quarter or a year, and you think about things having more free flow. So some seasons are going to be more kid heavy. Some seasons are going to be more work heavy. I mean, that's just the reality. So when you take off the need for this 50-50 split, then you have the ability to let things flow a little more naturally. Mm-hmm. And that can help with the mom guilt. And then the other side of that is to think about, what do you need? What do your kids need? And how can you find a way for them to overlap?
I like that.
Your kids don't necessarily need 8 hours of your time every day. And as much as we have been together, I'm sure if you asked your kids, they would say, no. I do not need my mom's attention for 8 hours.
I think it depends on, I think if I asked my second, he would be literally sitting here and doing video with us because he would just have so much fun. So I know, Suzanne, I think every kid's a little bit different. And that's another thing I really want to talk about is sort of one of the questions that we had coming into this is, what do you do? What are some strategies that you might share of talking to your employer to give you more flexibility so that you can juggle home and our kids right now, our kids and work, I should say, more than that. I think it's a really reasonable thing. I think a lot of employees are feeling a lot of guilt, sort of having to go between, different rooms and different scenarios. What are some strategies, Suzanne, that you would recommend? And definitely want to go to Kate for this too.
So keep in mind that there is so much flexibility that is being offered right now. I think probably more than in any moment in history, companies are willing to be flexible. And so that is something for you to walk into your conversations understanding, but they are unlikely to hand it to you. They're not going to say, oh, Winnie, you have kids at home. You know what I think you should do? Let me give you a little more flexibility. That's not going to happen. It's just not. I know, Winnie, I know that you're unique because you do actually offer that to your team, but I think that's largely because you are a mom. But for most people who are employed by a company, you are going to have to ask. So my biggest suggestion is, instead of trying to go one-on-one and have a conversation with your manager or senior leadership, actually have a conversation with your colleagues and understand, what are all of us going through? What are the pain points that we have? How can our employer actually help us? And go to your manager or your team lead or your senior leadership, whoever it is, and actually have a constructive conversation, be able to create win-win so that so it's not just, I'm going to take everything and you're just going to sit there and take it, right? Like that doesn't really help you when you're trying to propose a change. So find those wins for both sides when you go to have that conversation. And as a manager, think about, do you really need your employee to physically be in that seat at specific times? Or do you really need the work to be done? And it doesn't matter at what time that happens. If the point is, by 5 o'clock, I need to make sure that this thing is turned over to the next person who's going to do something with it, then does it matter if the person does it at 6 o'clock in the morning or during lunchtime or whatever hour? You can designate meeting times so that, okay, we are going to agree right now that we're not going to have meetings before 10 a.m. or whatever the case is, or we're going to have meetings during this time slot. So that way you are able to set that expectation with your teams. So it's kind of on both sides. You have to think about things.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a great point, and it's and it's what, and I think if everybody's open minded to this concept, you start to learn. Like I learned, I know like one of my team members, usually goes to lunch around such and such time, and we've learned that one of my team members, little one, goes to sleep around such and such a time. So when he goes online, we won't hear volume, and that's going to be fine. And so you sort of just evolve in that way. Kate, what is sort of your? I think that's great. I think, and I agree with Suzanne. I'm sure Kate, you do too. Is that I think employers are much more open to this than ever before, and I'm selfishly hoping this continues. I'm hoping we embrace more of work-life balance, if you will, and embracing our children or other dependents. Kate, how does that is Australia different? Because I think in the United States, it hasn't been, we say that we're real family friendly, but I don't really think as a culture we are actually that family friendly when it comes to work. Is it that way in Australia?
Yeah, look, we're actually pretty good around family-friendly sort of policies and so forth. But what I'm talking to a lot of my corporate clients about at the moment is shifting the discussion away from flexibility. Flexibility has sort of such a stigma attached to it. And in Australia, there's a lot of women will take flexibility when they become mums, and a lot of men don't because it has a bit of a stigma attached to it. It's harder to get back into the workforce at a senior level and so forth. So I think the discussion really needs to move away from flexibility to productivity. And the data is very, very conclusive on this, that when we're working remotely, at least part of the time, we are more productive. You lose the commute, you lose the emotional costs and the financial costs of being involved in a really long commute. You are better able to invest your time because your time is precious. It's like your money, and you don't want to manage your time anymore. You need to move and shift the dial away and say, I'm going to be investing my time from now on. So where can I invest my time for the greatest possible return? So stop talking flexibility, start talking productivity. I am most productive when I'm working from home. I can work around my kids, I can work around my family, and don't, as an employer, don't ask your staff to be, task driven. It's not where are you on task, where are you off task. It's got to be outcome driven. So how are you going against the key outcomes? Are the clients happy? Have you met big milestones? So change the discussion, and that's definitely happening in Australia. It's very doubtful that any organisation will return the full kind of everyone has to be in the office mode. I think overnight, globally, we have gone into this position where everybody has been able to, people have been able to prove that they can work really productively from home. So I don't think we will return to that. It's not going to be business as usual. It's going to be business as usual version 2. And we get to design that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's sort of a silver lining, if you will, of us working from home. I think so many times when you work at large companies, that's not an option. That's not an option to work from home. Certainly they want you in the office. They feel like they'll lose productivity. They feel like they'll lose that team spirit and that team communication. But I would venture to say, I mean, just, I do financial news each and every day, and I'm reading all these articles and talking to executives and a lot of my clients about this. And they said sort of the underlying theme that we keep hearing is, I was surprised that my company didn't completely fall apart.
Absolutely.
Like, productivity.
People are really productive when they're working from home. And I think a hybrid model coming out of the pandemic, where people have the opportunity to work maybe 1 or 2 days a week from home, 3 days a week in the office, where you can continue that team culture and collaborate and, have a hybrid model, but it's around looking for flexibility. It's around rejecting flexibility and saying, how are we most productive as a team, as a unit, as individuals? Because it's going to impact the bottom line. And anything that has a positive impact on the bottom line, these big corporates really should be considered.
Right, exactly. So, I mean, I agree with that so much. I think, thanks to technology, like I know many of us are using Zoom and using Slack and whatnot, we've become so productive working from home, Suzanne. Do you feel like, I mean, I feel like there's a lot of sort of semi-small businesses that can actually come from the things that we're learning. And if anything else, it's sort of highlighting the fact that we can do more of this from home, right? I think Suzanne has shared with you, I remember being pregnant with my first child and that anxiety of stress of like, what am I going to do? Because I would have to, I felt like I had my baby and had a couple weeks off and had to rush back to the office. It wasn't like, I didn't feel like I had the option to stay out for so long. Do you think that's going to change?
I'm hoping. I mean, I think more than anything, the idea of being able to work remotely is kind of here to stay. And Kate mentioned that. I think the statistic that I heard from Mercer Consulting was that 82% of the companies that they polled are planning on continuing some kind of remote working. That's a pretty big statistic. And it's interesting because the other thing from that I was really surprised by was that only about a third are looking at the financial implication of working from home. So it's not driving the decision making. It is, it's changing. It's just a benefit, right? Like, okay, well, this is what we're going to do because it's working for us. Oh, and by the way, it saves us money. So that is an interesting thing to think about. I think the other side of that, though, is that once you realize that you can work from home, that might give you the opportunity to have things like working from home after maternity leave, so that ramp up isn't just, okay, here's your time away, here's your time back, right? Like so you actually have more of a ramp up where, okay, even if we expect you to come back to the office, maybe it's that you get 4 days from home, 1 day back in the office. And then over time, if it is an office mainly kind of a role, then you can go back in, you can start to transition it over time.
Right. Absolutely. And one thing I got to mention, because you had mentioned this earlier, and I agree with that so much, is so for those of us who are able to right now work from home, and then our kids are going to school from home. I mean, it almost seems like we don't really have to be home, right? We just need to find a place that has internet, and then it goes, where I was telling my husband, I'm like, I'm thinking in the wintertime, maybe we go somewhere that has a lot of snow in the backyard, right?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
and so Suzanne, I feel like we're on the same wavelength here for sure. Before we wrap up here, I wanted to take a moment. I know the two of you are both esteemed authors. Suzanne, share with us your book. We definitely are. I want to invite everybody to check out your website, but tell us about your book. This is one of my favorites.
So my most recent book is The Mompowerment Guide to Work-Life Balance. I meant to grab it, but of course I didn't. But it is it's all about practical tips to help you create the work-life balance that you want. So you've worked really hard on your career or your business, and you still want to be the mom that you want to be. So this book helps you do that, and it walks you through all kinds of different aspects, whether it's having the conversation with your manager, having the conversation with your significant other, thinking about things
the
like—
The book's right there on the web, by the way. Now you can see
it. There it is. Yes, now you can see it.
The pink one.
So it's all about different aspects of work-life balance, because it's not just this division of work and work and family, and I've got to balance the two. There are things like mentors or sponsors who can help you make that happen. There's the need for self-care. There's so many different aspects of it. And so I walk you through a lot of the different kinds of tips, and actually give you a ton of tips, not just from me and my research, but I interviewed more than 110 professional working moms so that I could include their insights and their advice, and that's sprinkled throughout.
I know, and that's really helpful. I mean, all that research, all that information, actual working moms, I think it's been like, I really enjoyed it because I definitely learned something from it. For those of you who are just feeling a little overwhelmed, that might be a great way for you to start. And actually, you can go to Suzanne's website, and I believe there's a shop option on there. So you can jump on there and get that book. And so, Kate, tell us about your book.
So it's my fourth book. It's called Me First, The Guilt-Free Guide to Prioritizing You. It's broken into 3 parts. So the first part is around debunking some of the crazy kind of behaviours that we as working mums buy into, imposter syndrome, mum guilt, judgment. The second part of the book is a really practical go-to where I take you through a number of exercises that will guarantee you get back 30 hours of lost time a month. So if you undertake
a month,
30 hours a month, and
I love it.
I've never not got someone back those 30 hours. And then the third part of the book is around how to set and smash some truly audacious goals, because now you've got those 30 hours back. I don't want you doing another 1,000 emails or another 30 loads of washing. I want you to use those 30 hours to set and smash some beautiful goals for yourself and your family.
I love that. I love that. That's so helpful. And then you can also check out Kate's website, and you can see it says order now. So for those of you who are parents and wondering what you can do, what I will ask you this, if any of our viewers here are Modern Mom, if you do buy those books and you want one of these wonderful ladies to sign your book, maybe we'll figure out a way to do just that. So, feel free to reach out, let us know, and then maybe we can do something special for you from Kate and Suzanne. So definitely keep that in mind. I know these two ladies are very generous and thoughtful, and most importantly, they want to help all of us, right? Get through this very challenging time together. But what's exciting to hear from both of you is, I gotta say, the two of you made it sound pretty doable. So I feel like that gives me a lot of hope. I feel like I'm good with me first, and I'm thinking I'm going to be pretty mom powerful now. Does that sound about right to you?
100%. 100%. It is, look, we have to curate our own lives. Mm-hmm. So it's about looking at exactly what's most important to you and designing that life for yourself, and it is 100% doable.
100% doable. I love it. All right. Well, let's cap it out. Like, I know many of you who met these two wonderful ladies today are wondering the same. How can we keep in touch? Where are you most engaged on, so we can continue to engage with you on social media? Kate, where can people find you?
I'm most engaged on LinkedIn and on Facebook. So just type in Kate Christie into LinkedIn and Facebook, or go to my website, which is on the screen, and you can connect with me via that as well.
Wonderful. And we'll have a new friend in Australia. I love it. All right. Suzanne Brown, I feel like I might know the answer to this, but I still want to ask you, Suzanne, where are you most active? Where can people learn more about you? And of course, people are going to want to follow you today. And if you don't already, I highly recommend you follow. She's definitely one of my most favorite people on social media by far. Where can people follow you, my friend?
So I'm a big fan of Twitter, which is how I found the wonderful Winnie son. So love Twitter. And I love that it's more conversational. I think that's one of the things that I most enjoy about it. So you can actually have like an exchange, and it's not just long communications. I am active on LinkedIn, especially when it comes to talking to managers about what are some of the things that you can do with your own team. And then I do spend time on Facebook as well. And I have a Facebook group. So, and you can see my website. I have a weekly blog, so you can always check that out. And it also has loads of tips. So I try to give you lots of things that you can take as is, or you can adjust so that it's your view and it works in your life. So
wonderful. And I know you both consult with clients as well as companies and helping them set up situations. So really all of us can work just as proactively and efficiently, but also have that better quality of life. So thank you both for your time, for doing this and sharing your afternoon with us, or in the case of Kate, your very early morning with us. We appreciate you so much. And thank you so much for being here for Modern Mom. And those of you who are watching, thank you so much. We see all of you. Thank you so much for tuning in. We appreciate you so much. Modern Mom, as you know, is always out the lookout to create more content and information that really gets the heart of what you do and celebrate all the things that you've accomplished. So we appreciate you tuning in, and we can't wait to see you again next Monday when we bring you another meaningful topic that hopefully will help you and your family. So thank you, Suzanne. Thank you, Kate. And I will see you so
Thanks,
very
Winnie.
soon. Take care now.